Hi, welcome or welcome back. I am filming this on 30th December 2025. There's literally one day left for 2026 to walk in. And before we rush into a new year with new goals, new captions, and new versions of ourselves, I think we owe 2025 a pause. Because some years don't change you loudly, they change you quietly. So before the calendar flips, before we call this year over, this video is me giving 2025 the reflection it deserves. So yeah, let's start. My 2025 did not arrive gently. It did not arrive with clarity or celebrations or rest. It arrived in the middle of the night. On the 1st January, while most people were counting down seconds, laughing, hugging, resetting intentions, my year began at 2 am with my eyes burning, my mind heavy, and pages of POM, which is Physics of Material Science, scattered around me like a proof that yes, I was trying. I had an exam that day, a DSC exam, 5th semester, physics major. I had slept maybe an hour or two if I'm being generous. That kind of sleep where you don't really rest. You just shut your eyes because your body is begging you to stop. That was how college exams went, always on borrowed energy, always on survival mode. I remember waking up later that morning, wishing people Happy New Year, getting ready, taking a bath, pretending I wasn't exhausted, pretending that I wasn't terrified for my exam. On my way, I stopped at the market. I bought pastries for my friends. I don't know why that detail matters so much to me, but it does. Because even on a day when my head was barely holding together formulas and definitions, I still wanted to give something sweet to the people I loved. I gave my exam, my paper was 1 hour earlier than theirs, and while they stayed back to celebrate, I couldn't. Because I had somewhere else to be. Whenever my life feels like it's slipping out of my hands, whenever I feel lost or overwhelmed or like I need a reset button, I go to Chhatarpur Mandir. It's my place, my quiet promise to myself. My way of starting again. That day, the mandir was unbearably crowded. So many people, so much noise, so much movement, and yet somehow I got darshan. And in that moment, standing there, I felt this calm that I can't describe. Like, even if I didn't understand where my life was going, something bigger did. After that, on my way back, I met my father. We bought a cake for our family. The cake got exchanged at the bakery. Someone else's cake came home with us, but it didn't matter. That night, with my parents, with my brothers, my dadi, my chacha chachi, we cut that cake. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was warm. And then I slept. I didn't know then that this year would quietly dismantle me. After that came a short semester break, and then January and February slipped into a blur of jam preparation. I didn't attend college in the beginning of the semester. My entire focus was on the competitive exam, which was for higher studies of physics. I was serious, disciplined, almost desperate. I truly believed that if I worked hard those months, if I sacrificed enough sleep, enough peace, life would reward me with the institutes I wanted. But somewhere in the middle of that preparation, something uncomfortable began to surface. I realized as much as I loved physics, as deeply as it had shaped my thinking, I didn't want to carry it forward professionally. I loved it, yes, and I will probably love it till the day that I die, but I didn't want to live inside it anymore. And admitting that felt like a betrayal to the subject, to my past self, to all the years I had already given to physics. By March, the results came, and I didn't get the universities I had once dreamed of. It did hurt more than I expected, not just because of the rejection, but because it forced me to face a truth that I had been avoiding, that maybe this wasn't my path anymore. April came, and with it, reality hit us all at once. This was our last semester. I still don't understand how college ended so quickly, how years collapsed into memories without warning. My college life had been anything but smooth. There were ups, downs, disappointment, lessons, heartbreaks, enough stories for an entire lifetime. But suddenly, none of that mattered. What mattered was that time was running out. We spent every moment we could together because we knew after this nothing would ever be the same. Then came farewell. And on that day, I wore a sari for the first time. I don't know why it means so much to me, but it did. I had watched my mother, all the elderly women in my family look so graceful in their saris all my life. And somewhere deep inside, I wondered if I could ever feel like that. That day, in a pink sari, I did. I will also put a picture of it here. I felt beautiful in a way that wasn't performative, soft, grown, at home in my own skin. My juniors gave us roses, little handwritten notes, things that felt small but carried weight. That day will forever stay with me. And then May happened. May 5th. I turned 21, which is wild. Because when I was younger, I used to imagine 21 as this far away, cinematic age. I wondered who I would become, how confident I would sound. When I spoke, how would I look, whether I would feel like myself or like someone else that I was trying to become. And on that day, standing there in a black dress, it hit me gently, all at once. This is her. This is the girl that I've always wanted to be as a child. Not because of the way I look, but because of the way I felt. The way I moved through my life with my little quirks, the warmth, the quiet confidence, the softness I refuse to lose. Even when I learned how easily trust can bruise. The way I'm connected to God, to meaning, to something bigger than me. I didn't become perfect. I became aligned. I started my birthday early that morning at Chhatarpur Mandir, and something about that day felt different. For the first time ever, I journaled inside a temple. I have journaled everywhere else, cafes, bedroom, random corners of my life. But journaling there felt like the divine sat beside me and whispered, "Right, I have got you." It didn't feel like I was writing. It felt like something was moving through me, like an energy, gentle, warm, almost divine, guiding my hands across pages, words poured out that I didn't plan, thoughts I didn't consciously form. Later, I celebrated my birthday with my friends in a way that felt very me, very cutesy, very wholesome. Laughters, no pretending, just people who felt like home. Then I came back home to my parents. Another celebration, funny, warm, chaotic, perfect in its own way. Turning 21 didn't feel like growing up. It felt like coming home to myself. And for the first time, I knew exactly who I was becoming. Cut to exams of the last semester of my graduation in physics major, all nighters, WhatsApp discussions with my friends, panic, exhaustion, laughter on our own situation. After graduation came a gap, almost of 2 months, and those 2 months were some of the most anxiety filled days of 2025. I had to choose my future, and I was terrified of choosing wrong. During those 2 months after graduation, when everything was quiet on the outside but unbearably loud inside my head, there was this one moment that completely broke me. One evening, after days of overthinking, after nights of staring at the ceiling, wondering where my life was going, I sat in front of my parents and I cried. Not the dramatic kind, the helpless kind. I asked them, through tears I could barely control, "Am I a disappointment to you?" Because I hadn't cleared the exams, because I didn't know what to choose next, because for the first time in my life, I felt directionless. I genuinely believed that I had let them down. What happened next is something I will carry with me for rest of my life. They didn't scold me, they didn't rush me, they didn't even look disappointed. They looked at me with warmth so deep it almost made me more tear up. They told me I was never a disappointment, not even for a second. They reminded me that I had completed my graduation in a subject so challenging that most people don't even dare to think of it. They told me to take as much time as I need, and they told me that nobody at my age knows what are they going to do next. Adults suggested one thing and my heart whispered another. I questioned myself endlessly. Am I being impulsive? Am I being foolish? Am I throwing away something valuable? I researched obsessively. I consulted as many people as I could. I asked ChatGPT questions at odd hours. I watched videos in passion and purpose. And then slowly, painfully, clarity formed. I realized that I love analyzing, I love solving, I love finding patterns and meanings. And that's how data science entered my life. And I am so sorry for the noise that is coming from the background. I can't help because kids are playing outside, and I think it's okay. We can adjust with that noise. So yeah, data science entered my life, and I think that felt honest. And then around June, July, when I felt stuck, I finally did something I've always wanted to do. I started my YouTube channel. I've always wanted to speak, to share ideas, to articulate thoughts that live in my mind rent free. And when I finally turned the camera on, I felt relaxed in a strange way. I posted around 8 videos. I loved every single bit of it. But when college started, I had to pause. Not because I lost interest, but because life demanded space. In August, I stepped into a new college, a new campus, a new rhythm, a new version of myself that hadn't fully formed yet. The place was green, the kind of green that makes people stop mid step. Hills quietly surrounding the building, trees standing there like they had seen so many students come and go, as if they already knew that this was just another new beginning. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful, and yet everything inside me felt unfamiliar. I remember standing there and thinking, so this is where fate has brought me. Not where I have imagined, not where I planned, but here. And for some reason, I didn't resist it. The subjects were new, different, demanding in ways I wasn't used to. Those subjects made me want to sit with the problems longer, to understand instead of memorizing. And for the first time in a long time, learning didn't feel like survival, it felt aligned. Still, there was fear, of course, there was. I was worried about fitting in, about whether I would be too quiet or too loud or too thoughtful or simply too me. I wondered if people would find me strange, if I would stand out in ways I couldn't explain. And then one day, without drama and without declaration, I accepted something simple, that yes, I am strange, and I think that's okay. Being weird means being free, and that is a texture, not a flaw. The first semester was not easy. It was emotionally layered, academically heavy, mentally demanding in ways that don't show up on timetables. There were days I felt capable, there were days I felt overwhelmed, there were days I questioned everything. But I stayed, I adapted, and I learned. I handled it. And that matters the most. Somewhere in the middle of all this, between deadlines and decisions, something happened within my family. I can't talk about it, I can't put it out on the internet. Some things are meant to be, private and not explained. But that moment changed me. It reminded me in the most undeniable way how deeply my parents feel, how silently they carry love, how much weight they hold for us, for me, for my brothers. This year, my love for my family grew roots, strong ones. I realized that no matter how far life takes me, no matter how independent I become, there's nothing, absolutely nothing above them in my life. My parents, my brothers. I am not good at saying these things out loud. I struggle with expressing my love to them, but I hide emotions behind silence. And this year taught me something quietly beautiful, that love doesn't always need words to exist. Sometimes it lives in presence, in protection, in knowing that no matter what happens, we choose each other forever. The last few months of the year arrived without mercy. Midterms stacked on midterms, tests blending to practicals, practicals blending into exams. Life moved fast, too fast for feelings to catch up. I was doing, responding, surviving, not pausing, not reflecting. There were emotions I couldn't speak out loud, not because they weren't real, but because they were too tender, too unfinished. So they stayed inside me, quiet, patient, shaping me without asking permission. By the end of the year, I didn't feel dramatic sadness. I felt numb. Not empty, not broken, but numb. Now, when I look back, I finally see how much happened this year, how many endings I walked through, how many beginnings I didn't celebrate, how often I kept moving without giving myself space to feel. But now, in this pause, in this quiet everything, I'm finally listening. I am learning to care for my body, not as something to fix, but as something to respect. I drink better juices, I eat better, I try to cut out junk as much as possible. You know what I'm talking about, right? But more than that, I stopped measuring my worth in mirrors. I realized I am not my body. I am the energy I bring into rooms, the warmth I offer without thinking, the laughter I leave behind, the way I give my time and my knowledge and my presence so freely. This is who I am. 2025 felt slow, like constant effort without visible reward, like planting seeds in the soil that refused to bloom. But now I understand. This year was never about outcomes, it was about preparation, about quiet growth, about becoming someone strong enough to carry what comes next. And next year, I will move with a little more faith within myself. Thank you, 2025, for not giving me what I wanted, but for giving me everything I needed, for preparing me quietly.